guys, I figured we'd start this video in a little bit in the shade before I get to work. We have a sunny day and I'm taking full advantage of it. Today is the day we're ripping out all the tomatoes. So remember, I'm in zone 9 here in the south. It's been hot, it's been humid, and it's been rainy. I started my tomato seeds indoors from seed back in January. So these tomatoes have been growing, since I started them for 7 months. So it's time to get these tomato plants out. And if you wanted to do fall tomatoes, because that's how long our growing season is here, that you can actually do a second round of tomatoes, they would have been started from seed probably about a week or 2 ago. Push your luck, you can still start some if you haven't already, or you can pick some up at your garden center. I'm not going to do fall tomatoes. I love growing in the fall because there's so many vegetables that I love to grow that we can't grow here because it's too hot. So I'm getting ready, starting to think and plan for the fall garden, our broccoli, cauliflower, those kind of things. So I'm not going to be doing fall tomatoes. I've had my fix on tomatoes. And at the end of this video, I think I'm going to also talk about the different varieties of tomatoes that I grew and just what my experience was, and then what I think I will grow next year and what I think I won't grow next year. I hope you find that helpful, but let's get to ripping this out. I do want to say tomatoes are a plant variety that does get a lot of disease and blight. I think my tomatoes look relatively healthy, especially for how much rain and humidity we have. But one thing to keep in mind, that if you do compost, just be very aware of what your tomato plants look like when you're ripping them out before you add them to your compost pile, because you would hate to add something full of insects or disease and that contaminate your pile. So because of that, I'm going to be using, these are amazing. This is a kangaroo pop-up bag. If you don't have one of these, no matter what you're doing, these are so helpful in the garden. I basically use it as a collapsible trash bag because they collapse. So since these tomatoes aren't the healthiest, they're not going to be going in anything that I'm going to compost. So just wanted to be transparent on that. But yeah, these are great. Just a quick overview of what we got. I have about 15 tomato plants and they're all going, except for the ones in the hanging baskets. They're still doing great. They look relatively healthy and they're still producing more fruit, so I'm gonna keep them going. Let's tear everything else out. I am not ready for this jungle that's about to happen. Okay. I think my plan of attack is just go in and cut everything. Found the biggest tomato and I didn't even know it was there, but it totally got ate. Well, that was 2 plants. Nothing funner than tearing out your tomatoes and finding a giant tomato. The birds and pests found it way before I did, but I just had to show you how big this black crumb is. So I'm tearing this out. You see that little one right there? But right in there. Giant. Time to clean out Tomato Alley. It's hot.
tomato.
Okay, so we got majority of the tomatoes cleaned up. I think this is going to be a 2-day event because I have a couple more that I need to take out still. But I'm done for today. But I want to take a second and show you all the varieties that I grew this year, talk about some things I liked about them, some things that were okay about them, and then let you know if I think I'm going to grow them next year. So I'll start from cherry and I'll go all the way to slicers. So the first cherry tomato that I grew was a yellow pear tomato. This is an heirloom. They were pretty abundant, really tasty, mild flavor. Really enjoyed them, eating them fresh or cooking them down. I really like them. I think I'm going to grow them next year. And it was nice to have a yellow, colorful tomato in the garden. The next cherry tomato is the Sweet 100s. These got smaller in size as the season progressed and it got warmer outside. These are my least favorite tomato that I grew this year. I found the skin to be kind of tough, so it just kind of gave a not pleasant texture. So I don't think I'm going to grow these again, but I do have seeds, so in a seed swap or something, someone may be getting some of those from me, but they were not my favorite. The next cherry tomato I grew, I just picked these, was a Cherry Falls tomato from Botanical Interest. These are the ones that I kept in hanging baskets. These, I probably had 4 rounds and they are already putting on blooms and putting off tomatoes this size. And we're pretty close to August, which is crazy, which is why I'm keeping them in the ground. Definitely growing those again next year. I may even grow more than I did because we love them. They were the best cherry tomato flavor wise and in abundance. So if you're interested in growing those, I highly recommend them. Moving on up in size, the salad sized tomato. This is the Green Zebra. This is an heirloom variety as well. I was pleasantly surprised with these. I've seen mixed reviews on these. I feel like people either say they're really delicious or some people say they're overrated. I thought these were amazing. I wish they were more abundant. I feel like we only had a couple of them and I had 2 plants. So I can't imagine if I only had 1 plant. I really did like the flavor, but because of how much it didn't, produce a ton, if I was going to scale back my tomatoes next year, I think I would have to not grow these just because they didn't put off a ton. The next thing I grew is determined tomatoes. I picked this one as I was taking the tomatoes out today. I've had luck taking these off the vine completely green and letting them ripen to completely red. This was this color when I brought it inside. These are just a standard Roma. They weren't anything fancy. I was not a fan. I had 7 Roma plants, and granted, I was battling squirrels, rats, birds, and pests. I just didn't get a ton of them, and to be honest, these aren't that big, and if I'm doing all this work for like paste tomatoes, I want something bigger. So I'm on the hunt for next year for a larger, more productive paste tomato. So if you have one that's been great, let me know in the comments below because I'd love to check it out. Okay, the next tomato is the Big Rainbow, yellow shoulders, red bottom. These I was pleasantly surprised with. This is the heirloom variety, nice slicer, very fleshy inside, not a lot of gel. So even if you have someone who's not a big tomato lover, probably because they don't like the gel inside tomatoes, I think they would really like these. And they're also a pretty mild flavor. I've made pico and salsa, and I've just made tomato sandwiches with these. They're a hit. They were the last tomato to start producing, but once they started producing, they didn't stop, and they gave really big fruit. The next slicing tomato that I grew was black krim. These did get way smaller as the season progressed, like this one. At the beginning of the season, they were this size. Crazy. These were actually the first tomatoes to start producing. I think they even beat my cherry tomatoes, which was not what I was thinking. But like I said, these produced really early. These are a dark color, dark shoulders, and it's described as having a smoky taste, and that is spot on. I have never ate a tomato that tasted like this. I think if you're gonna grow one of these tomatoes out of any of them I said, just for taste wise, black krim is the one. These are pretty productive. They did, dwindle in size as the season progressed, like I said, but they were very tasty, and I'm definitely growing them again next year. So that's it for the tomato season of 2021. It was a fun one. It was, trying at times, but we got lots of good things out of it. I'm already excited to think about what I'm going to be planting next year. I do think I'm going to scale back how many tomatoes I planted this year, but that's why I want some real good winners. So let me know what your favorite tomato varieties to grow are. I'm always looking for new ones to try. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys. I'll plant with you later.